Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Unfiltered live stream. I'm John Marchant from KipperTie. My colleague Bryce. Hello. We're going to have just a little bit of an unstructured chat, really, to keep you guys up to date with what's going on. And I know this is not necessarily what you guys tune in for. As you will doubtless know, half of our business here is in production. Bryce, you and the guys just got back from a bit of an adventure on that front. I know they're not masses you can talk about, but where were you?
That's right, yeah. We were in North Africa filming for one of our very nice clients, doing lots of running about in lots of exciting locations, putting all of our gear to the test in desert conditions, doing some aerial work in hot air balloons, which was brilliant fun.
Yeah, very nice.
On the back of camels, all sorts of things.
Yes, I mean, you've got to be on a camel if you're
Of course.
yeah, it makes absolute sense. So yeah, I mean, you know, very jealous that you guys got to be out in a really interesting place. I'm sure it's a bit more down to earth coming back to the office again after that.
Very much so.
Yeah, but
and trawling through much footage from it.
Yeah, what was I saw you talking about what your sort of edit ratio looked like it was going to be off the back of that.
Yeah.
Fractions of a percent.
It is, yeah. It worked out that over 99% of what we shot won't make it to the edit, just based on run times.
Yeah, I love how stuff like that works out.
It's a bit depressing.
Yeah, that's it. But oh well, more for the show reel one day, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, it's nice to mention that we do that kind of stuff because it's a big deal as far as I'm concerned that when we design things, it is based around real production work and real needs.
Yeah.
You know, it's the genesis of KipperTie as a producer of products is that we needed the stuff. Was there, obviously it was a bit specialised with what you were doing. How much of our own products did you have out there?
A mixture, and actually there's one tiny product that we didn't have, but we really, really needed.
Oh no.
And there's not one in front of us. I'm scouring to see if I can see one, but one of our little cable wraps would have been the perfect saviour for us when we were in a situation when we had some of our camera rigs break. And that was just what we needed, but we didn't have.
The perfect item. I can see Aaron is busy fishing one off his.
I was going to frame a shot of him, but he's also vision mixing, so that won't work.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. This is what happens when we try and multitask. There we go.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about. So yeah, we had a situation where we were in the field and we had a little magic arm break.
Yeah.
And there was literally nothing else that we could use.
Yeah, that would have fixed you.
That would have fixed us, believe it or not.
I mean, we love these things. It's the smallest, cheapest product that we do. You know, we're not reinventing the wheel necessarily here because, you know, ties like this that you wrap and strap on are pretty ubiquitous. They're everywhere in one form or another. What we did do with these, though, is really multi-purpose this part. So, you know, you've got 1/4-20 at this end, 1/4-20 female that end, a 3/8 16,
and it's exactly those parts that would have saved us.
Exactly, because we know how often those are useful. You know, they stack together. You can you know, you can do them up with a coin, a flathead screwdriver. They've got flats on them for using a you know, an adjustable wrench or spanner on there. Yeah, these are. It's hilarious because it's the simplest thing.
Yeah, and the smallest product we need. But in that situation,
but you were without
as in many, it's like,
that
would have been a godsend.
Yeah, because normally you can't walk for these things around here. They're hanging off every belt loop and every spare little place.
Yeah,
so yeah,
exactly.
those smart wraps, we love them, and yeah, that's so frustrating for you guys that there's a box with thousands of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you couldn't have it. But,
exactly.
Oh well, there we are.
Yeah, quite amusing.
Yes, it's a shame. But yeah, I mean, like I say, even down to little things like that, we've been driven by, wouldn't it be nice if we had this? Wouldn't it be great if we had that? So, by way of an update, just talk a little bit, looping back to what we were talking about last time out, which is LC Mini ND. So obviously, we opened up that for pre-order last time we did a live stream.
Very exciting. There
which
was
is
a
cool.
lovely response to it as well.
Yeah,
which
people
was...
were really, really taken by it, which is great. One of the most fascinating things that was an upshot of that is not necessarily just customer response, but within the industry response. So it was actually directly after some of that communication, we've actually been able to pursue some more cohesive relationship with Canon as a direct result of pushing for and striving for a product that interacts with their systems more. So I can't say too much about that right now, but we've got a renewed interest, effectively, in pushing forward that kind of stuff.
Which is fantastic, and those sorts of conversations are very exciting to have.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, absolutely. Anytime there's potential, and it cross-pollinates for us internally as well, because we were having those conversations, and in parallel, from a production point of view, I know you're looking then at some of the camera gear, going, that would be really good, wouldn't it? And yeah, it's an interesting one. So what I can say is we have a clearer understanding, I think, than we've had in some time of the shape of things as far as Canon's cameras are concerned. We've steered clear of offering Canon-specific ND solutions, and specifically of late, because they have internal glass NDs in, for example, the C400, C80. That's a great solution. If I were designing a camera of my own, don't get me started on that, that's expensive.
To say we've kind of been there.
Yeah. If I were designing it, yes, a solid glass NDs built in, smart approach. It's the right thing to do. But of course, their customers are immediately saying, "Well, what about an electronic ND? My Sony has this."
Yeah.
And
which is funny because it's the opposite of what some of other customers are saying, where I've got electronic ND in, what about solid?
Yeah, exactly. So
They're always there going,
yeah, the grass is greener always, I guess. If you're looking for a solution like that, it's like, okay, I want the perfect solution. There is no perfect solution, so you've got to pick a flavour. Yeah. So of course, up until we were partnering with LC Tech to produce these electronic NDs, there was no particular role for our style of products in relation to those Canon products, because we were doing parallel things. There's no great advantage. Different story now. So what we're really interested in is that right now, we developed the LC Mini ND with a view to using it inside of the Canon RF to EF adapter, which is, there's lots of them out there. That's where we expect a lot of these will get used. It's just a simple drop into place, and yeah, this adapter is pretty ubiquitous. There's lots of them. What's interesting to me is that cameras like the C400, C80 have a 4-bolt pattern, which has existed for a while now, allowing this type of adapter, although not this one specifically, to be bolted down firmly on the front of the camera, which is, it's a really helpful solution if the lens that comes after that point is also solidly mounted. Now I can see why for RF to EF they haven't bothered implementing that locking, because the EF mount itself is not that level of cine robust positive locking, literally, that you have with PL.
Yeah.
But Canon's own RF to PL does take advantage of that, and has iData as well. And what's interesting, of course, is they don't have a version with a slot, and there's no such thing as a version which has that solid mounting and a locking EF. So there's some gaps there, gaps that we're very keen to fill. And given that that would mean an expansion really of what amounts to our adapter family of products into something that carries the filter slot as well, we'll make sure that that isn't just RF that's supported at that point. RF will get the electronic support for pass-through for EF, pass-through for iData. But what we're looking at is developing a more universal design philosophy for it that allows us right from the outset to offer those with E-mount, L-mount, Z, and so on, which is something where it's been harder for us to start to implement that as time has gone along, because those have come about incrementally. We initially were producing RF to PL mount adapters at a time where nobody considered that that was likely to be a significant thing. And certainly you weren't designing for a myriad of other mirrorless mounts at the same time. Subsequently that's changed. And some cheaper, later to market stuff has come out which was geared in that direction from the outset. Problem is the quality isn't necessarily there. And I know, being totally open about it, I've said to people in the context of the LC Mini ND, there are some Chinese options out there that are budget priced if you want to put one of these in something that gets you a PL mount. Of course, in fairness, the customer feedback on that is, I've tried those no-name brands and I don't like them. It's a workload for us to build something, but it's absolutely something that I'm happy to take. I'm happy to take on. Exactly. It's totally in our wheelhouse. We can make good product there. I just want to make sure that it is really worthwhile and really unique. So we're going to be looking at things like ensuring that there's iData pass-through for Canon and for Red, ensuring that there's adjustable and simple to adjust back focus, for example. That's an area where we can see development potential as well.
On paper, those two things sound like really simple givens, but I can I guess that they're not.
It's surprisingly enough, even some high quality solutions out there, making an adjustment to back focus is not trivial. Making adjustments to back focus, even on our products, we make it possible, but it's the kind of thing where you need a bunch of appropriate time, space, and equipment to do it. And the professional standard is to use shims. It's what people expect. But what we're considering for the sort of realm of products that I'm talking about is a shimless option that means that you can loosen off a mechanism, make an adjustment, and retighten. So not the kind of thing that you might find on the back of a broadcast lens, or even maybe something like a CN20, where you can go, oops, I changed the back focus, my day just got a lot worse. We don't want that to happen. But what we do want is for people to be able to make adjustments in the field without having to fully disassemble anything, without having to have appropriate parts lying around.
Absolutely.
Just talking about the frustration of not having the right thing at the right time, being able to shim your mount is only valid if you've got the appropriate shims in the right sizes. Otherwise,
which nobody really carries with them in the field. That's the prep day thing, but not a shoot.
Exactly. You don't carry them in the field. We put them in the box when we ship mounts. I think that's, we kind of feel like it's appropriate that a shimmable mount ships with shims. We don't make them, make you cough up for them separately unless you need extras. But it is somewhat limiting, so it's not something that I think is applicable across all of our mount products. I think the more pro end would still appreciate just the standard simplicity of, I know what I've got, I put a shim in and that's it, and I know what I have. But I feel like particularly targeting that market for the C400, C80, something that gives you the professionalism of adjustable back focus without requiring the I've got to go off for a serious prep day and get all the tools out and get the workbench ready.
Yeah.
That's a middle ground I think is kind of applicable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really interested to know though, like I say, this is me taking ideas that are, hot off the press that I'm literally working on at the moment and feeding them out to you guys. Absolutely drop a comment. Let us know, what you think about that. It's something where we're actively developing and trying to seek out the niches where our stuff is applicable.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would also be remiss if I didn't do the standard like and subscribe stuff. We don't.
That'll keep Sarah happy.
We haven't been saying that kind of thing because, to be perfectly honest, I'm not super comfortable. We're not trying to be YouTubers.
No.
We're
If
trying.
we were, we'd be terrible YouTubers.
Yeah. But we're trying to talk about our products. We're trying to communicate to people and get the word out there. Realistically, though, guys, I know it's boring, but that stuff does help because it means that people get to hear what we have to say.
Exactly. And we hear what people have to say, which means we can make more appropriate things.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a positive little circle that we can get there. But like I say, we are probably never going to be chopping in our career for YouTube presenting. That's not what we're trying to achieve here. So yeah, that's kind of the state of play with the LC Mini ND. It's the progress, after pre-orders being opened is, everything's working, parts are on their way in, things are starting to be assembled, and everything's kind of on time with that, basically. In fact,
Got a few more features since launch, hasn't it? Or
a few more things have been refined. One of the things that I'm happiest with is the Bluetooth app. We've managed to get the latency good enough on that you can do smooth live ND pulls with it.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. That's cool.
Which is nice. We're really pleased with that. And in fact, if you look around on the Apple Store right now, you'll find that the companion app is actually already up and approved, so you can download that and play pretend
Nice.
until the hardware arrives.
That's the first KipperTie app to make it to production.
Yeah,
isn't it?
that is. Yeah, an app isn't a thing that we've really had a need for previously, but that's up and live now. And the next step for us is obviously to push forward onto the revolver version, which
I can see
fixes that. So it's a prototype. We've shown some stuff before. This embodies an idea that is, this is not unique to us, but essentially there is a swappable tray mechanism inside. So you can see in this prototype how that works. One of those is the electronic ND, the other is a clear glass. That solves the remaining issue, obviously at the cost of greater engineering requirement, greater space requirement, and the slightly more complex rigging of the revolver system as opposed to the Canon style drop-in. But we want to try and make sure that we've covered all of the options, all of the bases that we need to. So this Revolver LC should be, should be getting us there. We've had some engineering challenges along the way. The guys at LC Tech have been very forthcoming, very helpful on that front. We're really pushing the boundaries with this. So the thickness of the LCD ND component is right down to the minimum technically viable. So we're having to request the glass to be specially polished down to thickness, which is an alarming concept.
That's incredible. And that's the electronic panel.
That is, so that's the raw part. So in this instance, we're actually having to make some custom flexible printed circuit boards and a few other bits and pieces in order to package that and the clear glass and everything else all inside the pre-existing revolver geometry, because it's very important to us that this specific iteration of the product needs to work for anybody who's already got a revolver.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's always kind of been a philosophy, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
The concept of trying to keep backward compatibility is a big one, and I know that some of what we're talking about here is breaking with that a little bit and saying, okay, we're going to push on in some different directions, but primarily the places where we're doing that are places where we don't have an incumbent market. So for the red stalwarts, who are the core people with revolver, we're able to say, yeah, here's something which is a backward compatible solution. For people who will be less familiar with us, less invested on the Canon side, on the Blackmagic side with Pixis, for example, we're looking at stuff which, it doesn't necessarily have the backward compatibility, but it gives the best option for right now. And honestly, I can see a lot of validity in continuing to push the form factor of the Canon drop-in filter. That is something that we're going to try and make the most of. I don't know if we've had any questions that I need to... No, Natasha's dutifully keeping an eye on that off camera at the moment. Do leave a comment, let us know if there's any feedback you've got, or catch us on the socials as well. That is something that we genuinely keep an eye on. I know it can feel like firing a question off into the void sometimes when you do that kind of thing, but we do pay attention.
We all see it.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody knows what's going on. So that's kind of the latest on that front. I know people are probably clamoring for Strata Electro news.
Yeah.
Again, we've talked about the trials and tribulations of development with that. We've been
I seem
asking
to
a
recall
lot.
that was the very first one of these we did, wasn't it?
It was. Yep, exactly. So, sometimes products fall into a development hell where you start to think, am I putting good effort after bad here, or what am I doing? It's still very much slated for release soon. We have solved the majority of the issues that we had, some by changing tack, some by pushing for higher standards from suppliers. And I feel like it still has a very valid purpose in the market. It's probably the case that in parallel with the electronic NDs that we've been working on, it solidifies its place as a more professional solution that is targeted at people where certain things count very differently. So perhaps it's delineated. I'm sure from a marketing perspective that's probably a terrible thing, because it's probably reducing our addressable market there. But the point is, we're really about making sure that the solution is right. Like I say, I strongly feel like it's still a very valid, very worthwhile solution, even in its kind of delayed state.
Absolutely.
So,
I can see we've got a question in.
Surely not. So
EF to E mount.
E to EF. I love it. People always confuse us with which way round we're stating that. So from Sony E mount to EF, and also from...
So it's putting Canon glass on a Sony body.
Basically, yeah. Also wrapped into the same concept, Z mount to EF. Both of those exist conceptually in other products out there, made by other people. They are technically viable, but in a lot of cases they are sort of minimum viable capability when it comes to using them. And I know, I mean, what would you say, without brand name dropping or shaming anybody, what's your experience been of using that type? Because I know we've got... It's not.
It's poor. A lot of the time when you're working with, say, Canon glass, there's electronic features there that you want to use.
Yes.
And they don't communicate properly with the cameras because of the third-party issue going on.
Yeah.
It's just like you've explained before, it's multiple directions of different language translations.
Yes, yeah. So it's not ideal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's buggy and unreliable.
Yeah, indeed. And that's not what we're about.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of factors at play. So this is still in the maybe zone for us. There are some teams of software engineers out there who are producing stuff that works a lot better. So Megadap have produced some really high quality stuff that does seem to work reliably in that space, even producing, for example, their Z to E mount, which is a technical marvel that is just almost sheer chance that there is enough space for that to work. But not to take away from the fact that their code that's doing the translation is very effective.
Yeah.
The issue that I have on that front at the moment is we're trying to make sure that we play a very ethical game as far as the relationship with Canon and other third parties is concerned. As a small company, it's often very difficult for us to get appropriate access and to get the intellectual property rights to be able to license features that we want we want to be able to use. It's only at the point where we have asked and been refused, or asked and the request falls on deaf ears, that we're in a safe place to reverse engineer some kind of protocol, which is a tall order in the first place in a lot of cases. So the difference is that there are a lot of companies out there who are not operating on the Western model, who are quite happy to just jump straight to that reverse engineering phase. And sometimes that happens even with the big names. So we've seen, as I understand it, Sigma previously have produced RF mount lenses and been told by Canon, sorry, no, you don't. These are big companies having these kinds of disputes.
Yes.
It seems to me as though a lot of the smaller players are flying under that radar. And I know that what the manufacturers really want is a third-party ecosystem where everything is quality, reliable, works, makes their brand look good, makes their brand look interoperable.
Absolutely.
That's a good thing, but equally, it's very easy as if you were the core manufacturer of a camera or a lens to say, I don't want anybody touching this stuff. I want this as proprietary and locked down as possible, because otherwise, all we're going to get is unauthorized rubbish.
That's the simple solution.
Yeah, so it's a very tough line. Where we've ethically drawn that line in the past is that we've only reverse engineered where things were unavailable to us, so it's on the right side of the law. We've also only really done anything like that where there's no translation of protocols, where we only pass through data-based, intellectual property-based streams in an unadulterated way. We just provide a conduit.
So our electronic interface isn't turning to a Sony camera and being like, hey, I'm a Sony lens.
That's it. There's no spoofing, there's no translation. And from that perspective, we feel like what we're doing, apart from anything else, means it's as compatible can be. So, like I say, we feel like we're in an awkward middle ground with that at present. Previously, it was an instant no. It's pretty much as simple as that, because the quality just wasn't there, and it's not really in our wheelhouse to develop that code base to do the translation, especially when putting the effort into that didn't necessarily sit with the ethics of how you implement it in a good way. Like I say, it's a grey area right now, and it's one that we're trying as a small company to actively navigate, because we know that technically speaking, it is now much more possible. This is a really long answer to can I have an adapter or not. It is now technically possible. We can do it. It's a matter of should we, who allows it, and is it proper?
And the point is, for us, that decision is based on conversations we have to have with external parties.
Yes, and their decisions.
So it's not an instant answer for us.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're also, these are private concerns, we can put that information out to people. We can make those requests. But in a lot of cases, there's very understandable protective behaviour when it comes to how those kinds of communication protocols are used. It's interesting that, for example, there are camera control protocols in a lot of cases. So particularly with Canon, control protocols are very often publicly, openly documented. So if you want to be able to plug a cable in or make a network connection remotely to a camera from a lot of different brands, there are many ways to do that and say, oh yes, I'd like to request these settings. I'd like to trigger these functions. Not always as simple as that when it comes to translating.
Yes.
We've got more going on. L-mount is so the L-mount consortium is a separate group. Same kind of situation applies there. The quality of translation on that to EF, I've also not actually seen that as effectively demonstrated. So that's a step behind still, I would say. It's also probably a step behind in terms of industry adoption or presence of that mount as a mount that you might want to translate in a valid way.
Yeah, so the market for it is
the market is smaller. The places where you will see that L mount, the manufacturers of the cameras very often have other alternate mounts directly available as well, which negate the relevance of the question. So Blackmagic, a good example of that, where yes, there are L mounts, but there are also first-party PL or EF or other things that solve the question. So yeah, that's the best answer I can give at the moment, being as trying to be on brand with the unfiltered, say it how it is thing.
Exactly.
These are conversations that we're actively having, and it's something
They're not short conversations
no, this is complicated stuff, and a lot of it comes down to the individual philosophy of the first-party manufacturers at any given time. How do they feel about a third party implementing something? Now, what I'm aiming for as a manufacturer of what I hope are really high quality products is that they will be able to see and qualify what we do and say, okay, well, that's good. So we're going to allow access to the appropriate information to get a good job done.
Based on the merit of the quality of our products.
Yes, exactly.
Which moves us on to one high quality product we've got here.
Yeah. Oh, that's a segue and a half.
Smooth.
We'll make a YouTuber of you yet. So just to wrap up, for the faithful who've actually been listening live, this won't stay live for terribly long. We have a few 4 terabyte long takes. These are super fast CF Express Type B version 4 hardware. We were one of the first to have that. They're now getting a little bit more available in the market. Mega fast for offloads, compatible with just about anything that takes a CF Express Type B. And right now on our online store for £950, which is a big fat discount, not for terribly long. So yeah, hurry over there, take a look. There's a limited number of them at that price. It's just the tail end of a batch. And I thought, yeah, what a nice way, hopefully, to reward those who are, the few and far between who want to listen to us waffle.
Yeah, and made it to the end. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. That is about it for now. We'll be back again fairly soon, trying to give you more updates. Do like and subscribe, do comment below, and we'll do our best to catch you back either in the YouTube comments or across our social media. We'll see you again soon.